Live. Welcome everybody to the Reelblack podcast, the Talking Black podcast with Mike D and Charles Woods, special guest Rhone Fraser. As the room fills in, we'll get right into it. Breaking news this morning as we were doing our DJ set, the word came out that Harry Belafonte passed away at age 96. I mean, there's just too many words to express who and what Harry Belafonte meant to the world. We're going to spend the next hour and a half talking about his life and his legacy. Harry Belafonte, dead at 96. And with us on the line is Charles Woods, my podcast partner, Ace Boone Kuhn, to share his thoughts first, and then we'll bring in Dr. Rhone Fraser to share his thoughts, and we'll take comments from you guys as you're watching. So right now there's about 11 people in the room, but we're going to start right away with Charles. How you doing, Charles?
Mike, how are you? And peace and blessings to the Reelblack family. Just want to send a shout out to the family of the great Harry Belafonte. We when we lost the other giant, his good friend Sidney Poitier, and we went to see Harry, and we know his age and whatnot, but film wise, which I speak a lot about, and it's been a lot of my studies has been on film. Film wise, Poitier is like recognized as a significant film personality, but very few people know the legacy of Harry from a film perspective. He was a giant, and he did many things, but one of the significant things about Harry, which kind of set him apart from everyone else, was that he was a fierce fighter for equality and justice for blacks. And many people felt he was, in a way, his fierceness kind of turned many people off. It even caused some friction between him and Sidney. But the thing about Harry, he would not give up in his fight for human justice for blacks and just justice for all oppressed people.
Without question. There's so many layers to his existence. I want to talk to you primarily about his role as a cultural influence of film producer, film actor, musician, singer. And then when we bring Dr. Rhone in, we can talk more about the civil rights activism and heroism. He truly was a hero. But from your expertise, I mean, how do you look at his career as an artist?
Well, the thing about Harry and as an artist, Harry did something because of who he was. He was mentored. He and Poitier were mentored by Paul Robeson. And Paul Robeson, if anyone studies the career of Paul Robeson became someone who more and more he grew in love with Africa and his need to recognize and see Africa for the significant birthplace of humankind that it was, and how little it was being recognized as such, as a country that was great, as a contributor to the progress of mankind, but it was never presented as such. And he would become very political in his fight for the rights of humankind. And he mentored Belafonte and Poitier, but he became a political threat. And at one time, being that Harry and Sidney were on their rise as performers, he told them, look, for your own well-being, it's best that you not be seen with me. And they kind of kept everything on the DL. But
Hmm.
a lot of the political understanding and the drive to politicize things in a correct way, a lot of this was learned under the tutelage of Paul Robeson. And this is where Harry got a great deal of the what he wanted to do as a human being.
Right. Well, let's talk about some of the roles, though. I mean, they're groundbreaking, they're reflective of the civil rights movement, and of the time. But Harry was the first to do a lot of things in motion pictures, right?
Yeah, the thing, what I was going to touch upon is the fact that there's one thing um, that kept Harry from becoming the star that Sidney became. And that's that Harry was not going to do everything that would be forced upon a lot of Black actors. If he didn't feel it was the right role, if it was a role of dignity, Harry was not going to do it. And when Harry, who was getting into music and would become known as the King of Calypso, uh, everyone remembers Deo and Mama Look a Boo Boo. He became the first artist to sell 1 million copies of an LP, the first single artist to do that. And he became known as the King of Calypso. And so he would make a lot of money performing as a singer. And because he had the wherewithal that this brought him, he could refuse a lot of roles because of his looks. And I spoke on this once before. Harry had the looks that if they were going to promote cinematically a Black man, Harry had uh, the looks that would be more accepted by a mainstream white audience. He didn't have your typical Negroic, what they call Negroic features that was prominent with Sidney. And so they wanted to promote Harry as a matinee idol. He was the first Black matinee idol. But the thing that made him uh, refuse a lot of films that he was offered was that he felt many of them weren't presented in a dignified way. And case in point, when Sidney did Porgy and Bess, that role was first offered to Harry Belafonte.
Hmm.
So in terms of promoting Harry because of his looks in films that, because the Black artists, there was an attempt to start showing them more in an enlightened and progressive way. You talk about the civil rights era, which was in the 50s. The first major film, not that he did, because he started on a small film, Bright Road, which was released in 1953, and he appeared opposite Dorothy Dandridge. But the thing is, Island in the Sun was a significant film. It was produced by Darryl Zanuck, who gave us in 1949 Pinky, and it touched upon the controversial issue of interracial relations. And so when they talked about doing Island in the Sun, which was done in the Caribbean, it was shot in Grenada. There was supposed to be a relationship based on, it was a popular book. Before a lot of these films come to, before they're filmed, the thing is, are they popular? Will they sell? Island in the Sun was a very big selling novel by, what was it, Alec Walk. And so Zanuck wanted to do this as a film. And he loved the idea that it stirred up a lot of controversy because there were many people, especially in the South, who objected to the idea of having a film that would touch upon sex relations between, especially a black man and a white woman.
Mm.
And Zanuck, knowing how profitable controversy sells, because he, Pinky was one of the biggest films in 1949. So Zanuck said, "Don't worry, we're going to do it." Now, there were some things that were edited out; they weren't shown. You didn't have any kissing by a black man and a white woman, or in the case of Dorothy Dandridge, who also had an interracial relationship, there was no kissing with the white man she fell in love with. All of that was toned down. It was non-existent. It caused a great deal of criticism. But the thing is, the main thing, the bottom line is that Island in the Sun was one of the biggest films of 1957. So the controversy sold.
Very good. So, the one that stands out to me, I'd like you to talk a little bit about my favorite early Harry Belafonte role. I think the one that I would urge people to check out, 3 movies that I really like Harry Belafonte in are Buck and the Preacher, The Angel Levine, and my favorite, The World, the Flesh, and the Devil. Can you speak about World, the Flesh, and the Devil for us?
Well, The World of Flesh and the Devil, interestingly enough, what has to be also made mention of as far as Harry's concerned, Harry became not just someone who had to rely on someone saying, "We want you to do a movie." Harry became the first black producer of Hollywood films. Okay, so The World of Flesh and the Devil was under his Harbell Productions. And what it dealt with, once again, it touched on the issue of they use the term miscegenation. It touched on the issue of miscegenation. And interestingly enough, it had this beginning that no one existed in the world except the first person we see is Harry Belafonte's character. And what saves him from this destruction, apparent destruction, is that by the nature of the kind of work he did, at the time of what happened in the world, he was doing something underground. He was doing some work underground. So it kind of protected him from whatever caused the destruction of people. And what was great about that film is how it was shot, when it was shot, in New York. And I mean, they had to do things very early, where you had this scene of like no one's around, everyone's dead. And when Harry discovers, hey, I may be the only one left on Earth, and he's going around and he's trying to connect things and find a way of getting things so he could survive. And then the next person that we discover is alive is a white woman who's played by Inga Stevens.
Mm.
And so the two of them, once she gets over the fear of who he could be, and they get to know each other, and they see that they're sharing the same calamity, they become the only, it seemed like the only 2 people on the face of the earth.
Mm-hmm. Like the modern Adam and Eve.
Yeah. So what's happening, and anyone watching this, the question is, we're talking about 59. What usually happens when 2 people are brought together, and they're the only 2 people ostensibly on the face of the earth. Mm-hmm. This relationship, it should turn sexual, romantic, but that became a problem because we're dealing with two people, but we're seeing them on the screen, projected on the screen, and it causes all of these things with the audience in terms of the problem the audience has uh, seeing something that is not acceptable in society as we know it.
Right. Taboo.
Yes.
Yeah, and they changed the script in the middle to avoid the interracial love scenes in the middle of shooting, I should say.
Well, I mean, it's all, the writing is number one. When we talk about all film or art, they say is propaganda. There's a message. Um, the particular message was that you're going to have relations develop, but what was kind of troubling and problematic for people to accept with this film is that if feelings develop between these two characters, the person who is cautious about anything developing is Harry's character. The white woman, Inga Stevens plays, she says it's a natural thing. What is your problem? Why? Because she's ready. But what they do, the contrivances that what they do is they have Harry's character where he's got this trepidation against anything developing between the two of them because of his experience of what such a relationship would mean if they weren't the only two people on the face of the earth. Okay,
Exactly.
so they have it where he's the one who's not pursuing it, and a lot of people felt that was too contrived and it was too full of BS.
Now, before we jump in with Rhone, can you name some of your favorite Harry Belafonte moments on screen?
Because he didn't do that much film wise, I would say my favorite film where I feel one of the few things, not few things, but one of the things that was beginning to develop in the 50s with the civil rights movement was this need as a black man to see black masculinity on the screen. And in part and parcel of what Harry was able to do was present black masculinity in a dignified way. He helped pioneer that image. But I think Odds Against Tomorrow, I think overall, is his best film. And I like that image. He was someone who was in debt because he had a gambling problem. But he was someone who wasn't going to kowtow and be deferential, especially to a racist who was portrayed by Robert Ryan. And the message of that particular film was that whatever Harry wanted to do as a character he would portray on film, and then what he wanted to do with this production of his through his Harbell company, was to speak on the fact that unless we see each other as human beings, then we have odds against tomorrow. It's very apropos to what's happening in the world today, where we have so much nationalism, differences, where the issue of black and white is at a height of dissension once again, where people are not seeing each other as human beings. So the title Odds Against Tomorrow is like, if we can't see each other as human beings, fellow human beings, then we do not have the ability to see beyond someone's difference in terms of color or race, but to find out that we have more in common, and that's our humanity. And if that isn't first and foremost in our heart and minds, then the issue of working together, if we can't work together on a common project, a common cause, then that would present us with our odds against tomorrow.
Mm. I'm seeing the credits. I'm just noticing this. John O'Kellins was one of the screenwriters.
Well, he was. That's interesting. You see, Kellins is listed as a screenwriter.
Mm-hmm.
That is not a fact.
Okay.
Okay. What they did is they listed Kellins as a screenwriter, but he was actually there was someone who was part of the McCarthy era who was blacklisted.
Okay.
Who was the actual screenwriter. And now if you see this film today in its revised edition, the proper screenwriter credit has been added.
Awesome. Awesome to know. Okay, so thank you for that, Charles. And
I can't think of the guy's name, but he was someone who was blacklisted.
okay.
But if you look that up, you'll see who the actual person was, and that was finally corrected in later prints now that have been released on this film.
Okay, well, just for factual reference, I will look it up on IMDb. You have William P. McGibbon, Abraham Polanski, and Nelson Gidding as the writers. So Abe Polanski and William P. McGivern were not credited originally.
Right.
Very good, Charles. Thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we're on. So for those who are just tuning in to this podcast, we're on Reelblack 2 tonight, and we're doing our special tribute salute to the life and legacy of the late, great Harry Belafonte. Before I jump in, can I show this clip, Rhone, that you requested?
Sure.
This is Rhone. Okay, so we'll just bring this as a buffer.
Okay.
Who killed hip hop?
It's a defying. They're angry about it. That we didn't make it the way it should be.
I think those slick white people up in the boardroom iced us again.
Yeah, I can believe that too.
And put something on the table that was so seductive and so hard to resist.
Yeah.
Look, when I hung out up in the South Bronx with Africa Bambaataa and Melly Mel and watched the dawning of the hip-hop culture, it brought to me a profound sense of a wonderful thing that was in our future. This was an articulation that was just absolutely stunning.
Yeah, and then it came
all
ugly.
of a sudden one day somebody came up and jingled 30 pieces of silver. And all of a sudden many began and that institution of rape and profiting stepped in and corrupted and turned that thing into another being.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Mike, for the invitation and for that clip from Wayne Brady's show, which came from your Reelblack video collection. And thank you for sharing the film. He didn't really touch me, Mr. Belafonte, as so much a film critic more than he did a contributor, a philanthropist for the civil rights movement. And as you just showed in that clip, a cultural arbiter of the hip hop. Because when I went to Cuba in 2015, Mahia Lopez Cabrera, who is from the group Obsesión, told me that all the way in Cuba, Harry Belafonte was a major inspiration for her and Alexei's founding of Obsesión because of Harry Belafonte's visit to Cuba and him explaining to her the meaning of hip hop and his understanding as to how the music industry has co-opted it. He said later in that clip that it's not just the industry. Diane Carroll asked him if it's the white ownership of the music companies. He goes farther to say it's the bankers and how the industry promotes certain songs that do not uplift our consciousness over others. And so you see from the beginning, born on March 1st, 1927 in New York to Jamaican parents, you see the beginning of Harry Belafonte from the way he dictates his story in this awesome memoir which I highly encourage people to read, called My Song. And he gets the title from My Song. His mentor, as you mentioned, Mike, Paul Robeson, and who comes to visit him when he is in the American Negro Theater from 1946, performing in a play called Juno and the Paycock about the Irish poverty and relating that to the African American experience. And Paul Robeson comes to a play, a performance where Harry is performing, and has a profound influence on him. You see throughout his life, Susan. There's a documentary about him. Cossack, I believe Suzanne Rostock is the documentarian. Her amazing 2-hour that I saw in Philadelphia on Chestnut Street at the International House.
Right, Sing Your Songs.
Thank you. That title comes from what Harry Belafonte told her, which was what Paul Robeson told him: sing your song. And what that song is that Mr. Belafonte sang throughout his whole life, that you as an artist, all of us as artists, are to use our platform to uplift, to raise consciousness on behalf of those that have been oppressed by racism. And that is the obligation. And he carries that theme all the way in that entire video clip that you shared when that debate. Every artist should really study that debate that you showed a clip of between Touré and the journalist Touré and Harry Belafonte, because Touré argues that, the younger generation wants and craves those negative images. And Harry Belafonte argues instead, no, they're made to crave those images. And we as artists have to believe that we have the power to change that influence. We have the power to make them crave uplifting images. We have the power to make the young masses crave a positive, conscious image. And that's the hope he saw in the hip hop movement when he met Afrika Bambaataa, when he met these artists in Cuba and told them about what hip hop means. For me, I was mentioning to you in the text this morning, Mike, his donating and giving money to the Montgomery bus boycott, is what allowed all of those maids, all of those domestics in Montgomery, Alabama, to refuse the buses because of Harry Belafonte's money, to force the Supreme Court to rule in favor of those protesting, to force the Montgomery Bus Company to stop segregating their buses and forcing Black people to put their change in the front, get off the bus, and then enter the bus from the back. Harry Belafonte lived a life. He put his money where his mouth was, not only with the Montgomery bus boycott in supporting that, and also bailing King out of jail when King, as part of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, was in the Project C campaign, C for Confrontation, to end the racial segregation in the city of Birmingham, and was jailed. He wrote, Dr. King called Belafonte first, who, Belafonte had enormous respect for. And Belafonte knew he was writing what would become a legendary literary American masterpiece in the American canon called Why We Can't Wait, where he describes poetically the dangers of a young Black child forced to go to segregated water fountain, use segregated facilities. That all of that support, him being bailed out, Dr. King being bailed out of the Birmingham jail, was in part due to the work and the money of Harry Belafonte, as well as the freedom rides, CORE's freedom rides, Congress for Racial Equality, where members of CORE deliberately sat in the white sections of the Black Negro section of the bus, on the buses and in the bus terminals. Mr. Belafonte gave money to support CORE and made sure protesters had money for food, had money for lodging when they did that. And if he didn't get it, he used his commercial success from those films that you mentioned to get the money. One memorable part of his memoir that I can't forget is how he chose and then got rid of a man that he later found to be an FBI informant. J. Kennedy was his name. And he was the husband of a psychotherapist who Mr. Belafonte befriended. But just the way that he narrates how he was behaving and questioning, it was really a test for me reading that part of the memoir, my song, for all of us. We really do not need, you know, agents, so to speak, to make our own money. We can make it ourselves. That was the enduring lesson that I got from that part where he discovered this man, J. Edward Kennedy, was an FBI agent. And also, so there's so many themes I can go on and so many tangents. I just want to say his life demonstrated how you make sure you use your artist platform to change society to be better. And then there's the 80s with apartheid.
Yeah. I was
and
going to
his
get into
collaboration with Michael Jackson.
the apartheid. I'm sorry, covering your face here. Mo Reem says it seems insane that he only acted in 23 movies. And he said his favorite role was Kansas City, where he played a mob boss called Seldom Seen. Yeah, I mean, can either of you gentlemen talk about he was always actively involved in things from the March on Washington, but a lot of younger people would probably, well, not so young anymore. We Are the World. He helped orchestrate that whole fundraising effort to get money to the starving those that were starving at the time in Ethiopia. Can you speak to that, either of you?
Well, he helped launch that whole movement. That was what I believe in '84, and the thing, I think the bottom line is what Rhone spoke about from his reading on Harry Belafonte, because this Kennedy guy, the Kennedy guy was attempting to hurt Belafonte with publishing rights. One thing about Belafonte, he had his own control over his songs. He was about production. He knew the value of having your own stuff and being in charge of it. And Kennedy was fighting him because he changed, his daughter's name is Shari Belafonte. So they were questioning, did Belafonte change the name of a company for divestiture in terms of how to, it was going through a divorce thing that was coming up. But Belafonte, in terms of getting things done, and as I said when I first opened up, one of the things you have to respect about Belafonte, because he too became blacklisted. He was more interested in getting things corrected in terms of equality and justice than he was going to allow to do things career-wise that would be safe. He wasn't about being safe. He was about getting the job done at whatever it would cost. He was going to do it. And he helped to get Poitier, Sammy Davis, a lot of the actors, like Charlton Heston and all this, to donate money, because when we talk about King at the time was only getting maybe a total of earning around $8,000 a year. And with all of the trouble he was getting into because of the movement, as Rhone pointed out, this money, you want to do anything, you'll find out the importance of money, because a lot of these people, when they decided, let's say with the bus boycott, the strike, how are they going to get to work? A lot of them were threatened, if you strike, you will no longer have a job. And if you go to jail, paying bail and all this kind of stuff. Belafonte was instrumental in that, and to the point where not everyone wanted to be connected on the outside, outwardly, with that movement, because they knew once the people who ran the business heard about this, it was a way they could be threatened. And that, you know, when you can threaten someone, you can pretty much weaken them if they have to depend on their livelihoods for those meager roles or whatever. So, but Harry was someone who would not compromise his ideals. And the thing, even with Cuba, you know how Cuba became something that no one in America wanted to talk about after a while. He was going back and forth to Cuba, and he became very popular in Cuba, and that was a no-no. So
his documentary on Fidel paints, dare I say, it's the only documentary by an American artist who's still able to, you know, be respected as an artist about the controversial Caribbean leader that explains why that revolution happened.
And look what happened to him when he went against the Bush administration, and especially Colin Powell. Okay. Yes. And they said, well, why are you going after Colin Powell? And Belafonte said, when you look at what has happened to our people, it is beyond anyone's comprehension that someone who shares an affinity racially with these people can be a part of a system that's oppressing our people. And that's why he was so fiercely critical of Colin Powell. And he took a lot of
Rice. I remember him taking serious issue in 2005 when Hurricane Katrina happened, and Cuba sent rescue boats to New Orleans. And I only learned about what Condoleezza Rice did through Harry Belafonte. Belafonte said, how dare Condoleezza Rice turn away help from Cuba to the New Orleans people when this own country is not helping them the way that they need help. So he was very vocal of Condoleezza Rice also.
And what's interesting, Rhone, is what a lot of people don't know is the property that these blacks had in Katrina. They wanted that property back. And this fell right in their hands, a way of breaking up that area and then bringing the property where they want it. See, a lot of people, and this is what we speak about when we talk about technology. A lot of people, and that's why when what's important is the connection it has to what's going on now with this demonization of the woke and the critical race theory. When you do not know politically the truth about things, it weakens you knowledge-wise as to what's really going on. People want to present this idea that America is a country that's all about equality and justice. That is the furthest thing from the truth. The people who run this country, the elite, powerful elite, they want to maintain power. And the one way they can maintain power is to be in control of the court system, the political system, and the resources, how they can make money and continue to make money. It's power over people. And the person that is what's unique about Harry Belafonte, and he's inspirational. And as you recommended that book, people need to take this opportunity, if they didn't know anything about Harry before, to look into what made him what he was. Yes, the mentorship he had under Paul Robeson, but it's important that our people, especially our young people, they learn the importance of studying history and getting the real political history of this country and what it's all about.
Right. Yeah, he was definitely a freedom fighter in that respect. And I would beg to differ with anybody who would say he went to his last breath fighting for what was right. You know, Charles and I we had an opportunity to see him, maybe 5 years ago
Yeah,
in New
time
York,
flies with
and with Michael Eric Dyson.
Michael Eric Dyson. Yes,
And he, I mean, physically more frail than we're used to seeing him. But and the video from it is on the channel.
Okay.
By the way, but he spoke for an hour with passion. I mean, he's one of those elders that you just let him talk,
but he's so
and
articulate. Oh my God.
yes, so
Yes.
much wisdom came out. I was disappointed that it wasn't professionally recorded. I mean, I was there with the camera, but I was expecting it to be a lot different. This is an elder statesman of the world, but I'm glad we were able to capture that for the channel. There's a lot of Reelblack content. We had the opportunity to meet Mr. Belafonte once, and we covered different events that he participated in on 2 occasions. So all those events can be seen on Reelblack 2 as we speak, and TV appearances, and like a winner by decision. Just Google Reelblack Harry Belafonte, and you'll see a treasure trove of rare footage that is on the channel. Where can we go next? Oh, Charles, I know, also I wanted to say, he had a lot of influence on Martin Luther King, or Martin Luther King they had influence on each other. But I think for younger viewers, they also, I think you see a transformation in Sean Carter, aka Jay-Z, once he was reprimanded in public by Harry
Yeah,
Belafonte. Can
that's
either of you
true.
speak to that?
Wow.
Well, Rhone touched on it. I'll beg to differ, and not to differ, but I'd like to hear Rhone's take on that.
Well, yes, I remember first hearing Jay-Z in high school. Ain't no, and I like the one I got, no one can F you. That was playing in my mind, in the mouths of my peers. And to your point, Michael, yes, after Belafonte got him together and says, basically, use your power responsibly.
Mm-hmm.
We see Jay-Z now in 2023 at the helm, in 2021, in charge of the Super Bowl, producer of the Super Bowl, to determine the biggest money-making event on television. Okay. Because I think by the time he gets to that position, Harry Belafonte's words got him together. Use your role responsibly. You are at the helm. You are in a very influential position. You have a responsibility, the way Paul Robeson had a responsibility when he sang "Ballad for the Americans" in the 40s. So take it seriously. Do not denigrate the Black woman. He was very clear about. Harry Belafonte was very clear about the role, and to exactly what you said, Mike. You saw Jay-Z, and people attack Jay-Z now. However, the way that the system is, the way that the music industry has been shaped to where it's just concentrated in fewer, the longer it is, in fewer and fewer hands. You do see, especially with the image from the late 90s to now, looking more like Jean-Michel Basquiat. I would not have conceived Jay-Z even caring about Basquiat if I knowing what I knew in 97, So can somebody go on that art, go from singing what he was singing to talking about Basquiat? Okay, I believe it. And yes, I believe Harry Belafonte had an enormous influence. That's a theme throughout his memoir. The theme that if I don't have, if I have, and my neighbor doesn't have, I have to make sure my neighbor has. Growing up with parents who were fleeing immigration agents, both of them were undocumented, born in Jamaica, seeing how they hustled but still provided for their family members consistently. Growing up seeing that, not having much but doing a lot with little. Yeah, Yeah, he's going to say what he he's going to say exactly what he knows Jay-Z needs to hear, and I do believe it influenced Jay-Z.
Yeah, it's a total transformation that we see him and Beyonce after that confrontation in 2013. Where else can we go? Inviting people to the stage now. If they want to join in and share their thoughts, we can pop them up on the screen. If you just want to chat, we'll start entertaining the chat.
I just want to piggyback on the way he speaks about the hip hop movement and how it was taken over by the culture bandits and used in a negative way. He did Beat Street, produced Beat Street.
Yes, that's an awesome film.
Yes.
Yes, that was the beginning of hip hop on film.
Yes. And that, from what I understand, I think the album did very well, very well. We're talking about around, what's that, 84?
Yes.
But what was Rhone? I told Mike the clip that you requested Mike show from that dialogue, because Teray, he ate up Teray, because he ate him up. And the whole thing is this, that my studies, I a lot of times I found myself just condemning some of these early Black actors who, when you say they were forced to do these roles, and some people say, well, see, Harry would say, no, they weren't forced to do those roles. They chose to do them. You follow? But you'll have a number of people who say, well, they had to eat and things like that. But it reminds me of the commentary of when the guy plays an ape in the movies, Mike.
Yeah, you talk about are you talking about the King Kong?
The king? No, he plays an ape, the one who died in the Green Mile.
Oh, gotcha.
Michael Green, something Green is his name. I can look it up.
Michael Clark Duncan.
Michael Clark Duncan. Thank you.
And then Steve Harvey said, "Why would you do that, man? Come on, brother." And then he said, Michael Clark Duncan said, "Well, I got about $5 million for it, right?" And then Steve Harvey says, it just shows how they can corrupt you with money.
That's the old Hollywood shuffle.
Yeah, you can corrupt you with money. And so this whole thing of the commentary with the Jay-Z and hey, look, you're making this money, but you got to have something between your ears that makes you politically conscious of what this world is all about. And as the one thing that has not happened, and we keep saying, when will it happen? And you see the enormous amount of money our Blacks are making now, that they don't pool their resources, come together, and how much that could mean. And, there's always this talk about what the Jewish people did, but the Jewish people, they learned from their history. Yeah. Look, the only way we can keep from repeating this stuff is to be in control of the industry that shows us the way they want us to be seen. We need to have a hand in that. Our artistry, as you said, Ron, we need to have a hand on how we can control our ability to imagine the world the way we want it to be, and also to control the narrative on who we are truly as a people.
His company, Harbell, produced A Raisin in the Sun, was a big factor in late 50s in producing A Raisin in the Sun, particularly in that group, Philip Rose, who I met at the Harlem Book Fair over a decade ago. He's transitioned, but he made it clear to me, how he was trying to eliminate as a producer stereotypes. And for me, Harry Belafonte demonstrated as a producer how you can work across, how theater is an opportunity, because as a playwright myself, he demonstrated how it doesn't matter who you are culturally. If you believe in telling the story, the right story, like the story with the tomorrow in the title, it doesn't matter what obstacles you will manifest the production team to tell the story. And he did that on the stage. He saw what it took when he was at the American Negro Theater to produce a play. And he applied that to really change the film industry and make it relevant to the world.
Well, I would beg to differ on that one.
Okay.
I just want to. You say he did Raisin in the Sun?
Harbell production included Philip Rose. Harbell did not produce Raisin in the Sun.
Right.
But Philip Rose worked with Harbell.
Right.
And Philip Rose was instrumental in A Raisin in the Sun.
Yeah.
So it's like I see it like a baton passing.
Yes.
He did not directly fund A Raisin in the Sun, but he was part of a group that did.
Right. The connection, the influence, but I know he didn't produce because that was Susskind. Susskind produced that.
Right. So just that's to clear things up. Yeah. No, I would just for being devil's advocate, I'm thinking now, you know what, I mean, Harry Belafonte lived a long, fruitful life, you know, from all appearances, you know, active till the day he passed, you know, still fighting the good fight. I don't think would be that happy with the state of Black cinema today. I think he is one of those elders that would look at his body of work and say, well, now you show me what you got. You know, where's your Buck and the Preacher? You know, where's your Odds Against Tomorrow? Where's your Uptown Saturday Night? I'm not seeing it. Well, I'm seeing a lot of films that are designed strictly to make money and to keep, you know, and that film is going the way that hip hop did.
Okay.
That would be. I feel like if he were here now, he would have that feeling.
But could I just make a quick comment?
Sure.
Okay. Here's one of the things that got Belafonte in a lot of trouble. You see, you can have this opinion about how things should be done. Okay? But the reality is this. If we look at Island in the Sun, we look at The World of Flesh and the Devil, and Island in the Sun was a part he played, okay? But he wasn't in control of how they put the kind of character he played on screen. But with his own productions, The World, Flesh and the Devil, and Odds Against Tomorrow, there is some compromise in those productions, because there is some consideration on what we can get away with and what would be acceptable to a greater audience. That's box office consideration. No one, you know, there's always this thing about you have to be cost effective. And the thing is this, what caused a great deal of argumentation between Harry and other performers who he would counsel on, I don't think you should have done this. You didn't do this right. A lot of them, the argument would be, well, you know what? That thing you did in Island in the Sun, that was compromise. What you did in World of Flesh and the Devil, there were compromises there. You couldn't kiss that woman, that white woman on the screen. And Odds Against Tomorrow, you couldn't be this or that. There's some compromises made.
True.
Okay. And so a lot of times he would get into argument because, you know, he turned down the role of Porgy and Bess.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why he turned down Porgy and Bess, he said, is because DuBose Hayward, who gave us that film, that story, he said, when you think about Porgy and Bess, you know how many times Porgy and Bess has been done? Rhone, you're into this. How many times has that been done? And people are saying this is one of the greatest things that ever happened.
Right. James Baldwin wrote the best review of Porgy and Bess. You know, a cripple and a prostitute is what those writers want Black people to see themselves as. And so I'm sure that played into Belafonte's reasons for declining it.
Exactly. That's what he said. He said, look, I couldn't do it because they want to make the leading lady a prostitute, one of the leading characters a dope pusher, and another leading Black character a sex fiend that was played by Brock Peters. And then he said, then they have the hero who couldn't stand on his own 2 feet. He said, I wasn't going to have it. See, but Sidney, who didn't have the wherewithal to turn it down, and he didn't want to do it. Sidney didn't want to do it. They threatened Sidney, if you don't do it, you can kiss your career goodbye. A lot of people don't know that. Okay.
Well, that's one of the interviews that we have on the channel. We when we had the opportunity to talk to Mr. Belafonte in 2007, we asked him about why he turned down Porgy and Bess. So you can hear it straight from his lips on Reelblack 2. Technology, Porgy and Bess. So we're going to wind it down. Let's talk about legacy. So my argument is he would be incredibly disappointed at the direction the Black film has taken. I mean, there's greater strides clearly, but and I think that there if you look at the special features on the Buck and the Preacher Blu-ray, there were high hopes for that film at the time from both Portier and Belafonte, and audiences simply didn't come out to support. And that seems to be a recurring theme when movies get made that everybody claims they want to see, the audience just isn't there for them. And I think that ultimately Belafonte in his later years managed to make films. We talk about Kansas City, the
White Man's Burden,
Robert Altman movie, and then I was going to get to it, White Man's Burden, in his later years, that tried to challenge the stasis of the system. Directly in the case of White Man's Burden, I guess we should talk about that one. A lot of people haven't seen it.
But I just want, before I lose track, Rhone said something, and it made me think of Nate Parker's Birth of a Nation. A lot of people, you know, they don't understand the denotative and connotative sense of language, okay? But if you remember when they were promoting that film, one of the things that was a part of the tagline was "Sing a New Song." And that goes to the point of what Rhone was saying that Harry was doing. He was learning to sing his song. See, the song we get are the lyrics someone's writing for us. Someone wants us to sing. We need to learn to take our art and to sing our song. And so with Nate Parker's Birth of a Nation, said this is the birth of a nation, not like the one you saw by Griffin in 1915. This is one where it's closer to the reality of what it's been like being an oppressed person, someone who's been othered in this country. It's time for us to take our art, to take our voices, and to sing a new song.
Right. Yeah, Nate Parker definitely put his career on the line to get that story told. But yeah, so final thoughts, legacy. Rhone, do you want to go first? We'll leave it to Charles to close it out.
Sure. Harry Belafonte's legacy is to create art that challenges the audience, not to give you the nice, happy ending. He was at the American Negro Theater with Alice Childress, who Broadway is just starting now, and off-Broadway, to produce all of her plays without the happy ending. Like, I'm reminding myself of the ending of White Man's Burden, where the wealthy John Travolta character at the end offers the widow of Harry Belafonte's character money, and the widow responds to him, "How much? Is there any amount And for me, that's speaking to the ways in which the mainstream media profits off of Black death, including Tyree Nichols. Is there any amount? Who cares the amount? Art that Harry Belafonte created is challenging us to leave the world as he did, in a much less racist, less sexist, more Pan-African place.
And what's interesting, Rhone and Mike, a key line comes to mind in a script that was written by a Black man, The Landlord. And Diana Sands' character is impregnated by the white character.
Bo Bridges.
Yes, and she's going to have this child, and she says, "I just hope one thing about this child, or maybe the best thing that could happen to him, is that he would grow up like you." And he says, "Well, how's that?" Casual.
Deep.
Challenging. It challenges you. The work of Harry Belafonte challenges us.
Yes.
Are we going to be able to raise Black children to be casual? Question mark.
Hopefully, people who grow up with a casual attitude, it's impossible for them to have an attitude that's caring, that's concerned, that's humanistic. You understand? If we see things from a casual perspective, you have no humanity.
No, I hear you now.
You say, what one thing you cannot deny is that from a people who have suffered, someone asked, even it was James Baldwin. You know a lot about Baldwin. You studied Baldwin. He said, imagine if those Black slaves, if the humanity that was in them, if it was non-existent, how many white folk who were slave masters would have been killed? Okay, because a lot of times they want to erase the fact that we did have Blacks who rebelled and fought against being enslaved. They don't want you to know that history. But there comes a time when someone says, I can't take it anymore. I've had enough. And when we get to that point, we spoke the other night, we have another civil war that may be upon us. We have to have a society. This society is a culture that preaches love, love of money over love of people, over love of humanity, love of power. And this can't endure.
No, I agree. He did it in song. He was at one point he was the biggest superstar on the planet. He took his fame and he used it to help other people. Was not only the face, but the voice and the bankroll for the civil rights movement of the 60s. And he continued to help people wherever he went, wherever he saw injustice, through his art and through his action. And more people need to pick up his torch, quite frankly. Get off your cell phones. Stop looking at cat videos. Really learn. Take this opportunity now to just study a little bit about Harry Belafonte. Remind yourself of what it is that he did to help move this world just a little bit. Thank you, gentlemen.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, thank you, and thank you for the PayPal information is on the scroll. We'll let it go a little bit longer. Let's entertain in the chat a little bit. Real fast, if anybody wants to jump on camera, they can. Or just use your audio mic. There's a StreamYard link. We'll go another 4 minutes or so to let people pop in and make their donations. Thank you, John.
Rhone.
Yes.
I don't know if Mike wants me to mention this, but one of the projects I want to do, Mike, can I mention it?
Love or something else?
Well, Rhone did say something about a comment that was made where we have to stop denigrating our women. And you know how women, black women, mean so much to me. But the thing is, I want to do a thing on Paul Robeson.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that even the guy J. Michael Kennedy, who was turning out to be an FBI informant, it was another lawyer that reached out to Harry and said, "Look, he's telling the FBI what you're doing." And then what Belafonte says in his memoir is that he was around Belafonte to get more information on Robeson.
Mm.
So even after the Supreme Court had ruled in '57 that his passport can no longer be seized, and he got his passport back, they were still, after him, which still, throughout his life, it's personal. The love Belafonte had for Robeson is really personal. It's not abstract, because he saw how people near him was trying to still get to Robeson through Belafonte. Not
Yeah,
even.
that was the dream project of theirs. They Steve McQueen had attached himself to work with Harry Belafonte on a Paul Robeson piece.
Voya 44, I love you, man. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Voya 44.
Yeah, verbally, I'm just too busy to type, but thank you to our mod squad, which is consistent. I see them every day. They are family. Voya 44, Superstar.
Is L Brown in the chat?
Elle was in here for a second, I think so.
Because I never want to forget sending my love out to her. And then I read where the young the mother who came with her child to our lecture.
Okay.
She knew about it from L.
Yeah. Well,
and I always appreciate L Brown so much. So I want to send my love to her as well.
Okay, so if she's not here, she'll hear on the replay.
Yeah, and not just to those two, Voya 44 and L exclusively, but like I say, I just love our Reelblack family, and they're so I love them. Peace and blessings. Yeah.
For the people with wrenches tonight, Afro Soul, Superstar,
Afro Soul, yes.
Dawood, Voya 44. Chris Dragnet has been missing in action for a little while.
Wow. Yes.
But I mean, I know if he was around, he'd been on the channel. And thank you everybody who made a contribution tonight. We're talking about the Diva, John. Let me see if I can pull these all up. It really makes a difference because, I mean, I don't know if you want to talk about that, Charles, like just the difficulty in deciding what to part with in terms of trying to make space for your collection.
You know, I see like
Brianna and D.
The support we get like from Voya 44, and I was happy. I was so elated when I read L's comment that the person she told about the thing enjoyed the books that she got when she showed up to the event. And so I invested in some scanners, I told you. Mm-hmm. And it's just throwing a book away is like throwing a baby away, man. And you know, mm-hmm. And so I was happy I was able to take like thousands of dollars worth of books to the school. And I want to do, you know, when we did the Street Smarts, I'd love to be able to say, okay, boom, because we gave out gifts to the one I told you, if you could send that over to Reelblack too. The young lady we met in Harlem, the young girl and her mother in Lobla, she was so fantastic in that little episode we did.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Like, I
can put that one up on the screen.
I just get so excited, and I want to start a thing. I told you, I want to start a thing. I'd love to hear how, if we got some people in the Reelblack family, if they feel, yes, we'd like to see something where I want to aim, Rhone, Mike, I want to aim something, a segment of helping our children to learn, because what's coming out now is the devastation educationally that has happened because of COVID. And our children educationally now are like 2-3 years behind. And the one thing I discovered in the school system, first of all, you don't see many black men in the school system. Okay. Then a lot of the teachers who are before our children, they really don't give a damn. Too many of them don't give a damn about our children. They don't know how to teach them. They don't really think they're capable of learning. And I tell a lot of the parents, when you send your children to school, send them prepared and realize that the first teachers in a child's life are their parents.
Right. Very first.
You know, but the thing is, a lot of times what happens is a lot of our children's parents don't have the wherewithal educationally to be able to help them. They never grew up with an interest in the importance of education and how to. So I want to take what little knowledge I have to show the importance of teaching kids not what to think, but giving them the ability to know how to think. And also, when you look at our elders, like we just lost Harry Belafonte, well, one of the things that helped him is the mentorship of a Paul Robeson. We lost the importance of the knowledge that we learned from Baba Dick. Where do people get their information? Where are they digging? And you see the attacks on education where they're saying they want to ban books. They don't want to ban guns, but they want to ban books. What's behind that? And when you study books like Orwell's 1984, and you learn, you look at Fahrenheit 450. When this whole thing started with certain authoritarian figure becoming the president of the United States, and they demonize the news and they say it's fake news, the Washington Post changed its tagline, and they changed it to say, "Democracy dies in darkness." Knowledge, you know, when Malcolm X, when you read Malcolm X, he'll tell you how much reading meant to changing his life, learning. And then, you know, like right now I'm looking back at when the Africans, that whole decolonization movement and the Pan-Africanist movement, and any artists, black artists who have to realize the importance of their work. Belafonte knew it. The author of A Raisin in the Sun, she knew it. This is what's going to be the thing. If we realize the importance of it, how it can change our lives. It's important to know history.
Well, speaking of history, we're almost done. I just want to thank Victoria for the PayPal and Elizabeth. I'm happy to report. I normally don't give numbers out, you know, but we crossed over the $100 mark tonight as far as donations. So that covers a scanner, right?
Absolutely. Make that digitized and permanent.
Yeah.
So we got to figure out some ways to get some of the information out.
Rhone, you in New York?
To our viewers.
No, I'm in Pennsylvania, in the middle of Pennsylvania State College.
Okay, I didn't realize you moved. Okay.
Yes, but I'm planning to be in Philly for the Penn Relays. And
Rhone, I want to ask you a question.
Sure.
Just a little teaser, Mike.
Yeah,
This will be quick. This will be quick.
Sure.
Was Pennsylvania one of the 13 colonies?
Yes, as far as I know, after Delaware, it was the second state. Delaware is the first state to ratify the Constitution, and I believe Pennsylvania was the second.
You believe correctly. Now, you know a way to remember that?
No. What's a good way to remember it?
Pen. You know when you take a test, they tell you what kind of pencil to use.
Yes.
Number 2.
Yeah, number 2. Number 2. Okay, I get it. Number 2. Delaware number 1, Pennsylvania number 2. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh yeah, you still feel the energy too, dare I say. you go in certain parts of Philly, yeah, it's like that energy, that free black energy is just like no other city in the whole country. It's not in DC, it's not in Baltimore, it's in Philly. It's not in New York. It's in Philly.
I used to love to come visit Mike in Pennsylvania, and he'd take me to these spots to eat and stuff like that. And it was it was an atmosphere. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. We got to come back down. All right. So just to give the final word to the man of the hour, Harry Belafonte. Here he is, having fun with us. On our first interview that we did with him, first and only interview with him, but we have lots of content with Harry Belafonte on the channel.
Thank you very much.
Let's just get this thing here. Just right into the camera, introduce yourself, and say you're watching Reelblack.
You're watching Reelblack for reasons I don't understand.
Just say hi.
I'm Harry Belafonte, and you're watching Reelblack.
Hi, I'm Harry Belafonte, and you're watching Reelblack.
Thank you. So that was our moment. So if we can't say any better. Rest in paradise, rest in peace, rest in power, Mr. Belafonte. And
he will be getting a 9 nights. Jamaicans and Cubans will make sure he gets his 9 nights.
Beautiful.
And I meant to mention, he can't not mention Baba Dick Gregory as another force in the civil rights movement who basically sacrificed their career in entertainment for the civil rights movement. So
one last thing about Harry. He was to work with Dorothy Dandridge, and you know how beautiful she was, right? And they told Dorothy, we have found someone to play with you. The only one thing's wrong. This person is more beautiful than you are.
Yeah, he's a good-looking guy,
Yeah.
all the way to the end. All right, rest in peace. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Hang on, don't hang up. But I'm gonna end the live stream. So we'll see you tomorrow, or I'll see you guys tomorrow playing duets. So think about what you want to hear tomorrow morning, and I'll make sure I'm on time, 9:30 a.m. Eastern time, for Reelblack Live. We're going to be playing your favorite duets by request. So, and I know you got some, Charles, so hopefully you tune in as well. All right. Peace and blessings.
Peace and